Welcome back to my channel. The courtroom reeked of old wood and unspoken truths. You could almost hear the weight of history pressing against the walls. Kody sat there like a statue, jaw locked, eyes darting between the women who once shared his home, his heart. Or at least the illusion of it. Christine's stare could slice through stone. Janelle looked like she hadn't closed her eyes in days. Meri's hands trembled slightly, but her silence said more than words ever could. And Robyn? She clutched a crumpled tissue like it was her lifeline to sanity. Then the judge lifted a single manila envelope. "This," he said, voice steady, "is the DNA report connected to your testimony." That's when Meri rose to her feet. No outbursts, no tears. Just a quiet defiance that made the room stop breathing. "Your Honor," she said evenly, "before you open that, there's something I need to confess." It was as if the air itself recoiled. Kody's face drained of color. Robyn's eyes went wide. She mouthed, no. She wouldn't. But she would. And she did. Meri had just detonated the silence, and not even Christine saw it coming. The doors had opened that morning with the creak of decades. Decades of secrets, of silence, of wives who smiled through heartbreak. Christine was the first to walk in, chin high, eyes forward, a woman who'd waited far too long for justice. Janelle followed, clutching her briefcase like armor. Meri entered last, quiet, unreadable. Robyn came shielded, head down, attorney in tow, already on the defensive. And Kody, he was already there, seated at the defense table, wearing a suit that looked borrowed from a life that no longer fit him. His hair was slicked back too tight. His face unreadable. He didn't look up, not once. Not when Christine cleared her throat, not when Janelle sat down beside her, not even when Meri entered the room. This wasn't a divorce hearing. This was something deeper. A civil suit born from emotional betrayal, financial deceit, and the haunting question of a child's true parentage. The courtroom wasn't packed with strangers. It was crowded with ghosts, echoes of a family once whole in name, now fractured beyond repair. Judge Rayburn looked out over the room. He appeared aged but not fragile. He glanced at the women, then Kody, then at that envelope, the one that had arrived by private courier just hours before. Everyone already knew what it contained. Paternity results. But the meaning behind it? That was the wildfire waiting to burn through everything. The bailiff called out, "Court is now in session. Docket 4721B, Brown versus Brown." Meri sat motionless. Her heart thundered in her chest, but her face remained calm, practiced. She had rehearsed this in her mind for years. Every word, every look, every truth she'd buried. Christine leaned forward. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You sure about this?" Meri didn't respond. Because sometimes silence screams louder than any confession. Across the aisle, Robyn's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Her eyes never left that envelope, as if staring at it could stop what was already coming. Then the judge spoke. "Before we proceed with the formal hearings," he said, "Mrs. Meri Brown has requested to make a voluntary statement." Every head turned, except Kody's. He still refused to look. Meri rose slowly. Her heels clicked across the hardwood floor, echoing like a heartbeat in an empty church. She stood tall, steady, unshaken. "Your Honor," she began softly, "before you open that envelope, there's something this court, and everyone in it, deserves to know." The tension snapped taut, coiled like a wire on the verge of breaking. Janelle frowned. Christine's arms folded tight. Robyn froze. Still, Kody would not meet her eyes. Meri drew a breath that carried years of silence. "For years I said nothing," she began. "I played the role. I smiled for cameras. I agreed to things I didn't believe in. I let the world think I was bitter, jealous, the problem." Her gaze shifted slowly toward Robyn. "I let them all believe I couldn't move on. But the truth is, I knew something no one else did." And with that, she turned toward the judge. "That envelope," she said, voice firm now, "is not the beginning of this story." The courtroom fell into absolute stillness. Seconds stretched like hours. Because for the first time in years, Meri wasn't background. She was the storm. And she had just declared, it was about to break. It was about to break. "Welcome back to my channel." The end had come, but before it could finish, Meri spoke. Her voice was calm, deliberate, and deadly clear. "Before it's over," she said, "I have to tell the truth." The judge leaned back in his chair, studying her face with a kind of cautious intrigue. "Go on, Mrs. Brown." Meri's hand moved to her bag. You could hear the rustle of leather as she reached inside and pulled out a single photograph, creased at the corners, faded with time, but hauntingly intact. She held it up. The faces were unmistakable. One was Kody, the other, an unfamiliar woman. This was taken in 2004, Meri said quietly. And that woman's name is Carrie. For a moment, silence swallowed the room whole. Robyn's jaw dropped open before snapping shut again, her mind caught between disbelief and dread. Christine leaned forward sharply. Who the hell is Carrie? Kody's shoulders tensed. Meri turned to him slowly, her gaze unflinching. Carrie, she said, is the woman Kody was secretly seeing before Robyn. During the time we all believed we were living our so-called sacred family covenant. The first blow had landed, and it shook the courtroom like a thunderclap. The judge frowned. Are you telling this court that Mr. Brown was unfaithful to all of you? Meri didn't blink. No, Your Honor, I'm saying he lied to every one of us. About Carrie. About Robyn. About who he really was when this family began to fall apart. Christine shot up from her seat, anger flashing in her eyes. You knew? You knew all this time and said nothing, while he was manipulating us with his speeches about loyalty and unity? Meri nodded once. I did. I thought protecting the lie was better than destroying the family. I was wrong. Her voice broke, but only slightly. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free. Sometimes it just drops a weight you can never lift again. The judge raised his hand. Ms. Brown, does this connect to the contents of that envelope? Meri met his gaze. Yes, Your Honor, because the child in question, the one at the center of this case, she paused, her breath trembling, is not Kody's. Gasps erupted like a chorus of shock. And for the first time, Kody looked at her. Not with anger, not with guilt, but with fear. That kind of silence isn't empty, it's loaded. Robyn's voice cracked the air. You don't know what you're talking about. Meri didn't even flinch. I know what I saw. I know what I was told. And when you open that envelope, the story of this family will never be the same again. The judge inhaled deeply. This photograph will be entered as evidence, he said. The envelope will be opened following a short recess. His gavel struck once. The room didn't relax, it curdled. Outside, chaos erupted. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed, and the hallway filled with whispers that sounded like breaking glass. Headlines were already being written before anyone even knew the full story. Christine leaned against the bench just outside the doors. Her voice was low. Do you really believe it, Meri? That Robyn's child isn't Kody's? Meri didn't look up. I don't believe, she said. I'd know. The hallway felt colder now. Sterile walls, polished tile, but heavy with the weight of truth. Christine's arms folded tightly across her chest, her stare distant, like her mind had finally caught up with the explosion that just happened inside. Robyn sat hunched on a bench, tissue shredded between her fingers, her body trembling. Janelle walked aimlessly near the vending machines, speechless. And Kody? Kody sat still as a statue, his phone lit up in his hand but untouched, as if he was waiting for the glass to shatter and pull him into the dark. Meri didn't sit. She stood by the double doors, back to the wall, eyes on the floor. She knew what she'd done. She had broken the one rule that bound them all, the silent oath they all lived by. Never take the truth outside the family. And now they were all drowning in it. Some truths don't echo, they explode. And the debris they leave behind isn't just pain, it's questions that slice deeper than betrayal. When the bailiff called them back to order, the silence was suffocating. They filed in one by one, no words, no glances. Even Christine didn't look at Kody this time. The air had changed. Meri's lawyer whispered something to her. She nodded slightly, her eyes locked on the judge. No blinking. No soft edges left. Ms. Sullivan, Judge Rayburn said, turning toward the DNA lab representative. Please confirm the chain of custody on the test. The woman adjusted her glasses. Samples were collected at the designated facility on September 3rd. All parties were present under supervision. Results were hand-delivered to this court. Chain of custody is intact. Christine's pulse thudded in her ears. The judge sliced open the envelope. He read silently, lips tightening as his eyes scanned the page. Does this report confirm or deny Mr. Brown's biological relationship to the child? He asked. The technician didn't hesitate. It denies it, Your Honor. One word. That's all it took to collapse a dynasty built on delusion. Robyn staggered to her feet. That's impossible. There's been a mistake. Judge Rayburn lifted a hand. Mrs. Brown, the report is clear. I was informed Mr. Brown was the father. Robyn's voice cracked. That's what I was told. Meri turned her head slowly. Told by whom? Kody didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't speak. Tears spilled down Robyn's cheeks. He said it didn't matter, that love makes a family. Christine let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Now he believes in love over biology? How convenient. Robyn's lip trembled. He said he'd raise the baby no matter what. That the others couldn't know, it would destroy everything. The judge's tone hardened. To be clear, the paternity test rules out Mr. Kody Brown as the biological father of your son? The witness nodded. That is correct, Your Honor. Robyn sank back into her seat as if gravity had betrayed her. The truth had taken her legs. Secrets unravel fast, but shame? Shame lingers like skin you can't shed. Christine leaned toward Janelle and whispered, "She lied to all of us." And Kody helped her, Janelle said under her breath, fists clenched so tight her knuckles went white. The judge glanced down at the report again. Based on these findings, this court will now hear testimony regarding the concealment of paternity. He paused. We'll begin with Mrs. Robyn Brown. The courtroom froze. Robyn stood, her steps unsteady as she approached the stand. Her voice trembled as she took the oath. Tell us what happened, the judge instructed. Her breath hitched. It wasn't a lie at first, she began. I didn't know, not for sure. But when I realized I was pregnant, I told Kody, and he said, her voice cracked, tears spilling. He said we'd find a way, that nobody needed to know. Christine's voice sliced across the silence. You mean he told you to lie? Robyn shook her head frantically. No, he just didn't want to break the family apart. We weren't even married yet. He said if anyone found out, it would ruin everything. But lies meant to protect never protect, they only corrode. The judge's brow furrowed. So you and Mr. Brown agreed to conceal the truth? Robyn's voice broke. Yes. Kody finally rose to his feet. Your Honor, he said quietly, may I speak? The judge hesitated, then gave a curt nod. Kody stepped forward, shoulders heavy, eyes low. I made mistakes, he began. A lot of them. But I never did it to hurt my family. But the silence that followed said otherwise. Because sometimes the greatest damage doesn't come from hate. It comes from the lies we tell in the name of love. Come from hate. It comes from the lies we tell in the name of love. The air in the courtroom was so heavy it could have cracked under its own weight. Christine's laugh cut through it like a blade, sharp, cold, and drenched in years of buried contempt. That's all you ever did, she said. Her tone was not angry anymore. It was tired, the kind of exhaustion that only comes from living too long under someone else's control. Kody straightened in his seat, his voice cracking under the strain of self-righteousness. I loved them, he insisted, his hands trembling slightly. All of them. But the world doesn't make room for families like ours. Every day was a battle. With the law, with judgment, with ourselves. Meri cut him off, her voice sharp enough to silence him mid-sentence. No, Kody, she said, her eyes blazing. Not the world. You. You dismantled us from the inside out. That was when he finally looked at her. For the first time in what felt like years, his eyes met hers. Not the cameras, not the audiences. Hers. I tried to keep us intact, he whispered. Janelle slammed her palm against the table. You tried to control us, she spat. For a brief moment, it wasn't a courtroom anymore. It wasn't a show or a spectacle. It was the wreckage of a family, speaking not for headlines, but for the first time to each other. Raw, unfiltered, real. The judge's gavel came down hard. This court is not a reality show, he warned, voice echoing. Let's return to the matter at hand. Christine took one step forward. Your Honor, she said, steady but defiant, I request to testify. The judge raised an eyebrow. On what grounds? On grounds of emotional fraud and psychological manipulation, Christine declared. I lived in this man's house. I co-parented his children. I watched him transform, slowly at first, then all at once, into a man I didn't recognize. Meri's voice broke the silence. We all did. Judge Arburn hesitated, then nodded. Permission granted. Christine took the stand, the courtroom lights glinting against the tears she refused to shed. Kody used God as a shield, she began, and us as proof. Every sermon, every family meeting, it was never about unity. It was about control. She turned her gaze toward Robyn, who sat motionless. When Robyn came along, Christine continued, everything changed. It wasn't love. It was obsession. It was about control. And you knew it. Robyn's lips parted, but no words came. Christine looked back at the judge. "We lived in exile of emotion," she said, voice trembling but resolute. "Each of us in our own tiny cell and believing it was sacred. But it wasn't. It was just tastefully decorated." Silence fell like ash. The judge finally nodded. "This court will recess until tomorrow for closing arguments." The gavel struck. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions from the corridor, and news alerts exploded across every screen in America. But inside that room, there was only stillness. Kody sat frozen, his jaw tight and his faith crumbling around him. Robyn buried her face in trembling hands. Meri was the first to move, her heels echoing softly against the floor. Janelle turned toward Christine. "I believe you," she said quietly. "I believe it all." Christine nodded once. "Then let's make sure the world does too." The next morning, the courthouse was unrecognizable. Every bench, every corner, every seat was filled. Not just reporters anymore, but podcasters, bloggers, even old TLC producers who had come to witness the implosion they once filmed for profit. Meri arrived first, her composure cold and deliberate. Christine followed, clutching a thick folder under her arm, her jaw set, her mission clear. Janelle came in quietly, eyes distant, like someone walking into a war she'd already lost. But Robyn didn't show up. Whispers spread like wildfire. Where is she? Did she flee? Did she break? But it wasn't her absence that would define the day. It was what Christine brought with her. The judge entered and called the courtroom to order. "Mrs. Robyn Brown is not present," he began. "Her counsel has submitted a doctor's note citing acute stress response. The court will allow one continuance, but we are proceeding today." Christine rose. "Your Honor," she said, "I have new evidence to enter into record." Kody snapped his head toward her. "What?" Christine stepped forward and placed a flash drive on the table. "This contains a recorded phone call between Robyn and myself 2 weeks ago." Kody's lawyer leapt to his feet. "Objection. If this was obtained without consent," Christine didn't flinch. "I live in Arizona. She was in Utah. Both are one-party consent states. My counsel has reviewed it." The judge gestured to the bailiff. "If it's legitimate, we'll play it." Moments later, the courtroom was filled with the hiss of static. And then Robyn's voice. "Robyn, recording. He instructed me to lie. He said if people knew the truth, it would destroy everything. That you'd leave. That Meri would collapse. That Janelle wouldn't understand." The courtroom gasped. Christine closed her eyes, pain flashing across her face. "Christine, recording. And the baby?" "Robyn, recording. I didn't know for sure. But he said it didn't matter, that he'd claim it as his, and if anyone questioned it, we'd deny it until doomsday." The sound died. The silence that followed was suffocating. Kody shot to his feet, voice cracking. "This is out of context." The judge slammed his gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Brown." But Kody's rage boiled over. She was frightened. She didn't mean it. Christine turned toward him, her voice steady. "You made her lie about a child's father, and made the rest of us live under the shadow of your deceit." "You think you're righteous?" Kody shouted. "You all chose this. You chose me." Meri stood. Her voice was quiet, but it silenced the room. "I didn't choose you," she said. "I chose the version of you that never existed. The man I married died a long time ago. What's left is just the shell." For once, even the judge didn't speak. The courtroom sat in silence, each of them realizing this wasn't just a trial anymore. It was an exorcism. Christine stepped down from the stand. Janelle rose in her place. "I would like to testify," she said simply. Kody turned pale, his body rigid. The judge didn't hesitate. Permission granted. And just like that, the truth had only begun to bleed. The truth had only begun to bleed. The courtroom was frozen in silence. Not peace, not even calm, but the kind of stillness that happens right before something sacred collapses. "Proceed." Janelle rose from her seat with the calm of a woman who had already buried everything she'd ever loved. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't need to. It carried truth like a knife wrapped in silk. "I stayed longer than I should have," she said, steady and clear, "because I thought if I left, it would break everyone else. I thought endurance was strength. But endurance was just dying quietly." Her gaze landed on Kody. "You weaponized faith. You made love conditional. You isolated us one by one. And when we began to fade, you clung to the only one who still obeyed." Kody opened his mouth, but Janelle lifted her hand. Don't, not today. The judge leaned forward. Do you believe Mrs. Brown Robyn knowingly concealed the paternity of the child? Yes, Janelle replied. And I believe Kody helped her do it. The room erupted. Reporters whispered. Cameras clicked. The judge pounded his gavel. Order! Was this concealment financial in nature? Janelle nodded. He funneled family funds into Robyn's home. Claimed medical costs, school expenses, supplies, all in the name of family unity. But it wasn't unity. It was fraud disguised as devotion. Christine spoke up quietly. We all saw it. We all went through his files. Meri nodded from the back. Even his lies had ledgers. The judge sighed, drumming his pen. Court will recess. Tomorrow we hear Robyn's testimony. But tomorrow would not be what anyone expected. The next morning, the courtroom felt heavier. The crowd wasn't just press anymore, it was fans. Fans who'd watched this family for 10 years now watching its ruin play out live. Robyn entered slowly. Pale face, trembling hands. No makeup, no jewelry. Not even a wedding ring. Kody turned around and for the first time looked truly afraid. The judge spoke. Mrs. Robyn Brown, please take the stand. Robyn rose as if moving through water. She took a deep breath that echoed through the microphone. I want to tell the truth, she said before anyone asked her a question. The judge nodded. Go on. I met Kody when I was broken, Robyn began softly. I thought he was my rescue. He made me feel chosen. He promised peace and called it love. But it wasn't love, it was leverage. I gave him obedience and he gave me control. And together we used it to control everyone else. Gasps rippled across the room. I wasn't just his favorite, Robyn continued. I was his tool, and I let him use me. Kody slammed his hand on the table. Stop it. You don't get to rewrite everything just because it's hard now. The judge shouted, Mr. Brown, control yourself. But Robyn didn't flinch. She looked at him directly. You lied to me too. You said you loved us all. But you only loved control. She turned to Meri. I knew the truth about the baby. Deep down, I knew. But I wanted to belong. I thought if I kept the lie going, I'd finally be safe. Her voice cracked. But no one was safe. Not really. The judge's tone softened. Mrs. Brown, do you acknowledge that you and Mr. Brown concealed the child's paternity for money and personal benefit? Robyn nodded once. Yes. Kody's face drained of color. You're lying, he whispered. Robyn looked at him calmly. No, Kody, I'm finally breathing. Kody rose from his seat, shouting, You betrayed me! All of you! I created this family. Christine stood. Then let the world see what its creator truly looks like. Meri rose too. You gave us lies dressed as love. And just like that, the illusion shattered, not with a whisper, but with a thunderclap. The judge called recess. But before anyone could move, another voice rose from the back. I'd like to speak. The room turned. It was Leon, Meri's child, once known to fans as Mariah. Now older, steadier, carrying silence like a burden finally ready to drop. Mom, I have to. The judge hesitated. This is irregular. Christine stepped forward. Let them speak. The judge nodded. Proceed. Leon took the stand. Voice clear. Heart steady. You told us to guard the family, they said to Kody. But you really meant guard you. You made my mom feel like she was never enough. You made us compete for your attention, and then you called it love. You taught us that silence was loyalty, but silence doesn't heal, it rots. Meri wept quietly. Christine wiped her eyes. Janelle bowed her head. Leon continued, I don't know what justice looks like here, but I know what healing sounds like. And it's not silence. The courtroom was silent. No flashes. No whispers. Just truth. The final day arrived like a funeral. Kody entered last, a shadow of the man who once commanded cameras. The judge read the verdict aloud. This court finds that Kody Brown, with the assistance of Robyn Brown, knowingly misrepresented paternity to gain financial advantage and emotional control. Restitution of $130,000 will be paid equally to Christine, Janelle, and Meri Brown for emotional and financial harm. A ripple of shock swept the courtroom. Judge Robyn stared directly at Kody. You used faith to silence doubt. You used love as currency. You are not above the truth. The gavel fell. Kody stood, voice breaking. I loved this family. I tried to lead. Christine shook her head. You tried to control, Meri whispered, and I mistook obedience for love. Kody looked at Robyn, but she was already gone. He wept, quietly. For the first time, the man who had demanded loyalty had nothing left to command. Outside, the world roared. Cameras, headlines, fans crying, shouting, streaming live. Christine stepped forward to the microphones. "I didn't want this to be public," she said. "But sometimes the only way to end silence is to expose it." Janelle stood beside her. "We weren't wives. We were witnesses. And the show is over." Meri didn't speak. She just took Leon's hand and walked away. Robyn lingered by the doors. "You could have told the truth at any time," she whispered. Then she too disappeared into the crowd. And Kody? He just stood there. One man, one verdict, one reflection staring back from the courthouse floor. For years, he said the world didn't understand him. Maybe that was true. But the ones who did had all walked away. And sometimes that's the harshest verdict of all. Would you like me to add a final... Sometimes that's the harshest verdict of all. Would you like me to add a final...